business, we'll be actually voting for a temporary chair.
Want to do it again?
No.
Well. You folks, you want to be chair? Be chair? Okay, I'll be chair.
Need a nomination?
I nominate.
All right.
Thank you.
And we need a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
All right, ready? Now we'll call the meeting order, roll call. 6:03.
Chairman Scott Mead is not present. Alderman Michelle Eichmann.
Here.
James Rayberger.
Here.
Norm McKesson.
Here.
John Farney.
Here.
Michelle Tischer.
Here.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just switch. No citizens, I take it, and the meeting minutes were sent prior to today's meeting. Did everybody have a chance to read them?
Yes.
Any comments? We can go ahead and approve them if there aren't. To approve the main minutes as written. Looking for a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. Who's going to do the fiber?
So we will be skipping that.
Okay. Closed session. Are you ready? I'll read that.
No, we will. Item number 4 is the strategic technology plan. Then item number 5 is going to be the overview of the budget. Then item number 5 is going to be the overview of the budget.
I'm not in the right piece of paper here.
You need to be on this one.
Oh, that's the old one. All right. All right. So you have the plan up, and was there a handout? So you have the plan up, and was there a handout? There it is.
Thank you.
Again, we will be we're reviewing the strategic technology plan, which was created, I'd say, over 15 years ago, of the Technology Commission. On it, we're slowly making progress, working through the various components of it. There's a skeletal structure where you have core objectives at the main top. You have a goal, which is the archetype at the main top, and those are then broken down into objectives and objectives for it. So we have gone through the 10 main goals that are the components of the technology plan. Those are unchanged. We have changed some of the sub-objectives underneath that. We're currently working on fleshing out the strategies and the activities. Resolution and a motion to recommend for each meeting. What we're doing is creating a red line document discussing any of the items that are being proposed, and then any additional amendments or changes that we would like to have changed to that. I include those then in the red line document, and then at the end we will then be so you'll get the original and the finalized copy of all the discussed changes in it, and then we will then create the motion at that time to turn around and approve the strategic technology plan. So we have some newer members. It's been a little while since we talked about this. We're finally getting back to getting this out. So we're now on 4 out of 10 on the goals here. So there's light at the end of the tunnel that we're actually going to get through this entire packet. It's been an arduous journey to get to this phase thus far. As written, get to this phase thus far. As written, the section, the goals for this particular goal is to provide timely access to information. And the original plan only had objective 4.1, which stated the city should promote and encourage the use of electronic services and data exchanges by staff, vendors, and partners. The original goal literally said the city shall promote and encourage the use of electronic services. There was very little changes made to that. Strategy 4.1.1 in the original form said basically just to develop web-enabled services. And then strategy 4.1.2 was to expand the virtual office for remote staff and partners. And the web-enabled services, they had just a to be determined on it. And then they had underneath expand virtual offices for remote staff and partners. 3 objectives. One was to use the primary vehicle, the web as the primary vehicle for access to documents. Expand the web to include business process vehicle for access to documents. Expand the web to include business processes, and to promote update to web content. We added basically 2 additional objectives to it. One was the city shall encourage the digitalization of all documents. The city shall encourage the digitalization of all documents have the capability to be full text indexed, and the city shall implement data tagging and full text search capabilities than operational and public-facing applications. That's more along the lines of to try to create digital workflows and digital processes for it and encourage the digitalization of documents from beginning to end. That was not addressed originally in the technology plan. As written, when we look at it, develop web-enabled services, and then sub-strategy under that, expand for this, I kind of knew where they were going with, where they wanted to encourage using web-based technology throughout the entire enterprise. So throughout all of the Franklin processes for both us and our partners, and as I'm reading it, as I interpret it at this point, it's also to include and our digital processes up to our City of Franklin website, a web service, so it then becomes publicly facing, so people don't have to come down to City Hall all the time to get access to documents and read meeting agendas and listen to recordings, etc. We have that already out there. Now, this document was written slightly before we actually had the City of Franklin website, which was brought back, I think, in 2008 for it. So the way I'm interpreting this, if others would kind of semi-agree with the interpretation, is the way I'm structuring 4.1.1, develop web-enabled services. That would be to more or less promote the use of the City of Franklin website for the publication and distribution of governmental records, agendas, meetings, and events. Just to specifically put that out there. And then strategy number 2, still using web tech, put that out there. And then strategy number 2, still using web technology, is to promote the use of web-based applications and technologies over thick or legacy applications. This will allow for easier case scenarios where the application is used for the remote office and work from home situations. The application is used for the remote office and work from home situations. Very important in COVID days.
Jump in real quick.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things. The word over on 4.1.2, you may want to just rewrite that or rephrase it a little bit. That I know what your intention is
that's
do
just,
it instead
that's just
of.
a note or a comment. That's
Right.
not the actual strategy.
Right. It's the word over, just instead of.
Okay.
The word over, just instead of.
Okay.
What do you think about the conversation we had a few months ago regarding the posting of these meeting minutes, audio, and the reference that you have about And it doesn't say documents in the 412, I'm sorry, the 4.3.
Yeah, this isn't actually a rewrite of, that's the next slide.
Yeah,
This is just how my line of thinking
Yeah.
is, of what I'm thinking about what that strategy is.
tagging voice.
This is moving a little bit ahead. When we develop web strategies, what I would be looking at to do would be, went too far, use the web, move those move it up to the parent under webs, and literally have it as use web as the primary vehicle for document access, expand the web to include business processes, and to promote web updates to content, and put that underneath the parent strategy of 4.1. It gets a little on the confusing side.
With your current production application inventory, what would you say your thick versus web is today, percentage-wise?
It's definitely moving more and more and more towards web or even cloud,
Okay.
which is also web.
50, 60%.
Yeah,
I'd say it's probably,
okay. So
and
still
it's
work.
moving more and more and more towards web, especially as we, like I said, outsource to other organizations. For example, the whole GCS application, which is a bunch of land nav applications used down in Treasury, that's going in completely to a hosted portal down at Milwaukee County, and that's completely to a hosted portal down at Milwaukee County, and that's all going to be web-based.
And your Microsoft,
So that entire line of applications goes bye-bye at
That's
the end
the
of it.
next question.
the Microsoft would also be on the way out. Well, right? To
The Microsoft?
365, your Office.
Oh, well, I'm putting that in the.
Your Office.
Oh, well, I'm putting that in the budget for
Right.
for 2023.
But
But
that-
yes, turning around and moving to Office 365
Yep.
is also off on the horizon as well.
Perfect.
Thank you for this.
Thanks, yep. that
So
helps.
that's kind of where. So looking at a full. So 4.1, the city shall promote and encourage the use of electronic services and data interchanges for its staff and vendors. Strategy would be to develop web-enabled services with now web-based primary vehicle for access to the document. We can make a little change to that. Be posted and maintained on the city website for a period of 10 years. And then a sub-state underneath that, per state ordinance, meeting agendas and minutes will be posted and maintained for an indefinite period. So instead of having the original 4.1 web primary vehicle is to access for documents, my recommendation would be to change that line and say government documents will be posted and maintained on the city website for a period of 10 years.
What would you do then with 4.1.1.1? What would you do then with 4.1.1.1?
And that's a sub one. That's also an activity that
Yeah.
underneath that, it's because there's a condition to it where there's an exception where anything that's a meeting minute or an agenda, those have to be maintained indefinitely. Per state ordinance. Be maintained indefinitely. Per state ordinance. And then the original, which we moved, expand the web to include business processes, being a little bit more verbose, expand business processes to include the publication of documents and reports directly to these to include the publication of documents and reports directly to the City of Franklin website. And then promote updates to web content, being a little bit more verbose from recent activities, is to create distributed authoring of documents within the business units and allow the departmental editors the rights to update information in the business units and allow the departmental editors the rights to update information to their own designated site.
So you're not committing at all to voice taking? Meeting minutes like this?
Mm-hmm.
Or this would really be, I guess it would be a meeting minute, that's voice recordings?
Yeah, that's part of the meeting minutes.
Okay, I just wanted, the clarity around whether or not you're going to be posting the voice
Okay,
communication for the meeting minutes may not be transcribed into a document.
all meeting minutes have to be transformerization of it, and then we post certain video content. All audio content has to go up to the site. I can include the audio for sure.
All right.
Video is still at this point optional.
Right.
That we include it only for specific meeting of the planning meeting. I think there's one more as well that they have that we've been posting every single time. We used to post the video for the Technology Commission meeting during COVID. We stopped that. That was only during the pandemic where we were required to turn around and do it because we were having virtual meetings. So if you have the video archive.
Okay. If you could
But I
just-
can include that text, governmental documents, comma, or document artfully posted and maintained by the city website for state ordinance, meeting agendas, minutes, and I can say and audio files.
Yes.
4.1.1.1. These days, I'll print out the red line document so I can actually make my edits to the red line document instead of a separate notebook.
You don't have any automatic purge capability, do you?
Eventually, when YouTube
Right.
does it for us.
Okay.
I mean, they maintain on the file server all of the audio files.
Yep.
For it, but all the video files right now are being stored entirely over on YouTube.
Yep.
Right now are being stored entirely over on YouTube.
Yep.
And how long YouTube turns around and keeps them out there? Thus far, they've been really, really great, and we post it, and they've been keeping it forever.
Right.
Whether they will maintain that down the road and in the future, or require us to pay for it, is unknown at this point. But thus far, we definitely for free.
Yeah. I was thinking that sometimes you get caught if you don't purge something when you said you're going to. Yep.
Yeah, currently we haven't been purging. Because we just started it and we don't have that much of it at this point.
Right.
But we haven't been purging any of the video archives.
Okay.
Publication of documents, and we talked about the business unit with the document editor, so we did talk about that. Any other comments on that slide? Since I'm going through this rather quick. And this is confusing because where everything got moved around. All right, next strategy is to expand the virtual office for remote staff and partners, and boy, that's kind of changed now with COVID. We keep the strategy the same, and then underneath it, since we just moved the three activities over to the parent one, now I fleshed out some more that we actually had to deal with during COVID. Promote the usage and development of web browser-based applications, which can easily be used on internal networks or remote locations. That also includes cloud-based applications. Create and maintain a terminal server environment to publish applications. Using thin computing technology for legacy applications. 4.1.2.3, create and maintain an enterprise-class IPsec VPN that tightly couples with next-generation fogging repositories. Activity 4.1.2.4, create and maintain a voice-over IP telephone system that allows call routing both within and outside of local offices. And 4.1.2.5, create secure CJIS, Computer Justice Information, which we'll be talking about tonight for the police department that they have to be in conformance with. So to create secure CJIS compliant file sharing repositories which allow for collaborative document editing and transferring large files between parties. Which, if you don't have those 5, you're going to have a hard time. Technically, we normally do not work from home by current mayoral strategy at this point, that all employees are required to be on site. Where this frequently comes into plays is with vendors or partners where we may have to turn around and create these virtual offices for our auditors, external auditors.
Is 4.2.2 capability in place today?
Yes, it is. It's small, but yes, it is. It's just a little Microsoft terminal
Terminal
server.
server? That's
But it's small but mighty.
And secure.
And secure. And I do not allow publication of the public from the internet. So you have to be connected to the VPN in order to connect to the terminal server.
Just a quick add in 4.1.2.1, where you have the word easily, you may want to also add the word securely in there. So just to remind folks of how important it is to have security applied to the environment for the remote and internal use.
Okay, very good.
You outline it well below, but just I think if people don't get too much further in that or don't understand that this is a requirement.
Okay.
They might not realize this.
Yes.
right.
So before you get off this slide,
Mm-hmm.
as I looked at this, what's screaming in my head is disaster recovery. Would aid in that.
It does.
Yeah.
As long as this environment truly is not earworthy.
Right.
Disaster.
Right.
But if you had that type of virtual office environment available remotely, then yes, then that definitely does
If
help.
that was
Environment available remotely, then
Yeah.
yes, then that definitely does
if
help.
that was portable to other
Mhm.
server farms or whatever, yeah. Gets you closer.
And there is a separate objective for DR.
Great.
Anything else on this slide?
Cyber and putting it up there. I think culturally, you're going to want to start driving that cyber safety is everybody's responsibility, not just IT's.
Mhm.
And I think the more you can kind of get that message at the top,
Yep.
the better it's going to be.
And based upon previous conversations, it's not only a technical as well, which should be pushing next year's budget.
Yep.
Some of that.
Yep.
That's
Agreed.
some of the things we'll be talking about for. We're talking about this year's budget, but that's the next agenda item. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, moving forward. Objective 4.2, the city shall have the ability of being full text index. This is new to the document. And sub-strategies for that was the city shall build and maintain a document management system, DMS, that stores all documents within a central repository and full text index each record upon entry into the system. Today we do not have one. We're putting index each record upon entry into the system. Today we do not have one. We're putting everything on a file server. And along with that, all physical documents that are digitally scanned will be full text indexed at the time of generation. We are doing that today. I was kind of surprised when I came on board they weren't. Any additions, corrections, comments? Okay, and last slide. Very similar, Objective 4.3, the city shall implement the two strategies are all documents posted to the City of Franklin website will be metadata tagged to a standard taxonomy in order to facilitate the generation of complex search queries, which is being done today. And then when we do get a DMS, strategy 4.3.2, all documents posted to the taxonomy, same one that we're using for the website, in order to facilitate the generation of complex search queries.
Any need to mention in either Objective 4.2 or 4.3 about adhering to a document retention strategy or policy? Identified here, of tagging it and being able to search it and being able to do all these things. I would assume that you would want to make sure that you're adhering to the policy. Have them.
I can create 4.3.3.
Yeah. This is coming in. Encourage the digitalization. Great, you're doing that, so that's the technology. And then in 4.2.1, the city shall build and maintain a document management system. That's where I would think it'd call out to say that you're adhering to retention policy, which would also include the purging policy, which would also include the purging of stuff that's there in that policy. You don't have to send it.
So all documents should conform to an enterprise document storage.
Yep.
Shall conform to an document should conform to an enterprise document storage.
Yep.
Shall conform to an enterprise enterprise retention policy.
It'd be nice to be able to make sure that what we just said is understood for both 4.2 and 4.3. If you're doing digitalization, and then the next one you're saying you're tagging the digitalization. Does it have
Well,
to be
one's about the DMS, it's electronic documents, then 4.2 is about physical documents.
well?
But yet,
So yeah,
it still is a document management policy. Maybe it should be 4.2.3. But retention, all documents.
however you want to do it, but let's just make sure it's in.
Okay.
The wrong place we found.
Right. It's got to be understood. And then then you have to go back and make sure that that policy is kept current. You don't. I think that there's another group
Peggy.
that is Peggy.
Other places
Yes.
have a policy.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wordsmith that.
When I was working, I heard that an awful lot. Yes, we have a policy, but nobody could lay their hands on it.
Yep. Yeah.
And any other items on 4.3.2 or 4.3.1?
Do you want us to make a motion past this?
Only when we get done with the whole red line document.
So we're gonna go through all of them.
Yep.
All right.
So as long as we're okay with tonight's edits
Yep.
on that and what I have in the slide,
Yep.
And it sounds like most people are in conformance to some of the recommendations. And then it's added to the red line document, and then at the end we will then review the entire series of red line changes to the original, and
Yep.
then that's where we get the motion, either further edits or the motion to recommend.
Yeah. We really shouldn't have to re-review what we just did.
It's a long document.
I mean,
we aren't going to go through page by page by page by page, but you should be able to see the entire set of changes. And here's the original, here's a set of changes where you can easily compare the two. And then we'll discuss anything that needs further edited, set of changes, easily compare the two. And then we'll discuss anything that needs further edited, set of changes. Okay, finishes up the strategic technology plan. And we now move on to a brief discussion of the capital and operational IT budget. Normally, I do this discussion in January, sometimes February. I don't do it in June and July, because now we're halfway through the budget and talking about at least at this time of year, the 2023 budget, which is not normally proposed in July for capital, and then in August we have the operational budget that we did turn around and set. But because we had a lot of security policies out the door, we also had 2 FBI audits this year. Not to mention all the joy that we had bringing TELUS live and all the operational issues that we had in December and January. There was plenty of other things at the time that kind of took a little bit higher priority. On it. But I did want to at least get an understanding of what the budget was for this year that was approved, and where we stand within the budget and the spending. And I can say we're not really over on any items at this point. I can say we're not really over on any items at this point. But we do have some challenges, and probably the biggest challenge that we have at this point is this wonderful thing called inflation. That when I create a budget and propose it, I'm getting my quotes and I'm getting my calculations in July. So budget that was put in place and funded January 1st of 2022 was actually proposed and quotes were obtained in July of 2021, 6 months prior to it, much over a 6-year period of time. And if you don't decide to spend your money until halfway through the year, all right, now your quote has languished out there, and it's been out there now for a full 12 months. In a normal year, prices may need to be requoted. They'll change. In some cases, you can look at new technology and alter things and maybe get your quote down even lower. That's not where we are today. With 9% inflation, and that's CPI inflation on it, we are dealing with within IT a lot we normally expect from a normal year. Even the pandemic was not as bad with inflated prices. It's hard to get things, but the prices, for the most part, were still fairly reasonable. Now they aren't. A computer that I used to turn around and get back in 2019 is now not fetching $980. That's the average computer price. That's what it is. Look at the car market right now, and you're seeing this is what inflated prices and demand, if you can even get the supply out right now for it. So in some cases, we supply out right now for it. So in some cases, we have a plan to turn around and do a capital item or an operational item in this year, but because of prices being so bad and we're already halfway through the year, some of it we're probably going to kick over to the 2023 budget over it. And I know we're probably going to kick over to the 2023 budget over it. And I know I'm going to probably have to ask for additional funds for it just because the prices have increased so much over the course now of a year and a half from when it was originally quoted out. So that's a little bit of the nature of the beast. Overview for the spending for what we were going to do in 2022. The big one was going to be our VMware server farm replacement. It was put in place when I first started working here back in 2016. We had a Dell server farm that was dramatically underperforming at the time. It was a complete and total joke. And it was the Technology Commission at the time that decided that we would go with enterprise class equipment. We bought a 3-par fiber channel SAN for both here and the police department. I'm pleased to say that it's getting up to 7 years later and it's still performing and we're still using it. We're that SAN, which is outrageously good, and being able to maximize and utilize that investment. So we're not looking at a SAN upgrade, but we do realize that the computers are getting long in the tooth and it's hard to get a warranty on it. And I did extend the warranties out all the way to the end of this year, but the intention was, because of the cost of equipment, it really went up in price. We also had an intention to turn around and create a lean budget this year because we are moving away from staffing where we had extra staffing systems, and we're paying some very high contracted rates in staffing prices, and we're bringing that talent now in-house. It took us a while to find the talent. We believe we found 2 very good. We hired one. We think we found another very good individual right now. And our intention now is to go away. Found another very good individual right now. And our intention now is to go away from outside contracted staffing and then doing it internally instead. And we're looking at probably close to 50% cost saving by turning around and actually doing that. Our main staffing change in 2020 was to turn around and move away from Heartland. We didn't have contractors for part of 2020 because we couldn't rehire during the pandemic. We just couldn't find. In 2021, he's the help desk person for here at City Hall. And then we're doing the same thing in 2022 of bringing on the police department's IT analyst. We also realized that our trip light UPSs that we installed at the exact same time, farms, they're getting old, and we were going to turn around and replace those when we turn around and did the server upgrades. It's a lot easier to replace a UPS when there's no server in the rack. And then also due to large email traffic, some of it due to the elections, we have to retain all. We have that right now in an Introdyne email archiver. It compresses the bejeebus of that entire email archive. So it had a 2 terabyte volume in it. So it takes email going all the way from 2007 and compresses it way down, and it stores it locally on the email archive space. So we upgraded that over to a 4 terabyte unit, realizing that we were going to need a lot more disk space on it for email traffic. Every single time that a person requests a absentee ballot request, they have to turn around and send them a copy of their photo ID, the driver's license, and email that over to the clerk. Right now, it's an email-generated process where the clerk gets all of these emails. Well, that's if you think there's 30,000 people in Franklin and you may have 5 elections a year. If you think there's 30,000 people in Franklin and you may have 5 elections a year and they're doing an absentee ballot request, you can be permanently put on the list for it, but a lot of people do it on election by election by election basis. That's 150,000 emails plus pictures that you're putting in there. 150,000 emails plus pictures that you're putting in there just for the election. That has to turn around and be maintained, and that gets placed in the archiver, hence you need a larger archiver. As long as we have a lot of mail-in elections, that's not going to change. So for our capital expenditures, expected hardware budget, I requested $12,000. Normally it's $8,000, so that was brought up by $4,000 just to adjust for some unknown conditions, particularly what we saw with the pandemic. My laptop laid down and died, and I needed a new one, micro server that we use for imaging. I asked $5,587, and all of that was approved. The Introdyne email archiver was $3,425. That was all approved. The VMware server farm was requested for $170,811. Farm was requested for $170,811. Out of that, broken down, we estimated about $32,000 for fiber channel switches. That was not funded. Then we had 4 ProLiant server farm switches, Generation 10 ProLiant server farm switches, Generation 10 ProLiant servers. That was $95,000 for 4 servers, fully decked out. And then moving up to Windows 2020 data center licensing, you license the server farm, and then you can turn around and use the latest version of server or any previous version of it. Both the servers and the CALs were $39,263. All of that was approved. Then the City Hall UPS replacements was $9,265. All were approved. And then we had a proof of concept study for thin clients in order to turn around and go over to the virtual infrastructure, and that was not approved for it. So overall, we requested $216,000, and we got $175,000 instead for it. And overall, I'm happy with it. I mean, we don't get everything that we want in life for it, but I do know out of the capital expenditures, we've already spent the director laptop, and we're working on the micro imaging server. We spent on the email archiver. The UPS and the VMware servers, we're going to carry that money over. The UPS and the VMware servers, we're going to carry that money over into the 2023 budget and hopefully turn around and do that as a 2023 January item. So that'll be right out of the chute in 2023. And we'll be asking for in the 2023 budget additional money, to cover some of the undercharges and also to cover any additional inflated cost of equipment due to inflation. So that's going to be reprice quoted out for the 2023 budget. But there will be over dollars that will be encumbered between the two budgets.
Jim, I know we've talked about this in the past. Can you help me remember kind of what your appetite is and timing to move some of these workloads to Azure or AWS or Google Cloud?
Great question. At least I wouldn't do it. So you are not going to run Azure and run things up into a cloud when you're on highly unreliable Spectrum internet links. Eventually, I will see the need for having a VMware server farm slowly go down as we start porting applications. Over to cloud-based technology on it, but I don't see that happening immediately overnight. That it will be, even with a fiber optic WAN in place and then having symmetrical bandwidth between us and the cloud and reliable bandwidth between us and the cloud and reliable bandwidth where the internet isn't going down all the time, that we can envision going ahead and doing that. But even with doing that, it's going to take a while to turn around and port the information all the way over to the cloud. If I wanted to run ProPhoenix in the cloud, I would have to bring up all the ProPhoenix servers up into the Azure cloud, port all the application over there, test everything, make all the changes over at the police department. Even with 3 IT people, it's going to take a while to turn around and move your entire infrastructure over to a cloud base. We're years out. My anticipation is they may start breaking ground on the fiber optic WAN project this year, but even since it's now June going into July, half the year is gone now. Even if they broke ground, let's say in September on this year. So I anticipate quite a bit of the fiber optic WAN being done in 2023 at this point, and after that's done, then we can start looking at migrating quite a bit over to the cloud. But you still need to have a server farm locally to run applications, and you can't run it off of a server that's 2016 age. So it's already 5 years old. It's going to be 6 years old at that point. So eventually it has to be replaced as long as you're going to have some on-premise data server. And cloud, maybe. But I still think enough will still be kept on site just for compliance points. For example, I think it would be very difficult to put all of your video archives up into the cloud. The data storage load would cost you a fortune, and then you're also dealing with, all right, what happens if somebody breaks into the cloud and gains access to video surveillance, which is now police evidence? Do you want to put police evidence up in the cloud? That becomes a question, and that's where it's probably going to be.
I mean,
But
understanding.
it's a great. That becomes a question, and that's where it's probably going to be.
Understanding.
But it's a great question.
Understanding compliance requirements obviously has to be part of the equation, but.
Yep.
Well, then you can do comparisons of what other cities are doing.
Any other questions on the capital?
That's the next slide there. Going up just another level, I'm used to seeing operational capital budgets year over year kind of progressively out. I don't know if those things are available, but I would get a better appreciation of what you're working with rather than the detailed line items here. Look like both capital and expense.
I didn't include it for the simple fact that we had we could talk about that, particularly with the 2023 budget.
Yeah.
When we
get there.
It's not going to be that far to we're in 2023. That we could look at the overall all trends in it, but it has to be recognized there's going to be a lot of peaks and valleys in it based on
The details here are okay, but I just don't have an appreciation for the bigger picture.
Yeah. Okay, I'm moving on to operational expenditures. As I stated, we went from an HBS analyst in 2021 employee. With that, we actually had some cost savings with it. So there was $75,000 in our data processing budget that went unspent. That was moved into now and encumbered into the 2022 budget. And that $75,000 is what we have been spending this year on security initiatives. So we spent some money on it already for the foresight audits of the penetration testing, and the rest of it is going to be looking at either an SIEM or some form of MDR solution, which we're going to have to turn around and put in place by the end of the year in order to be in compliance with Section 5.4 of the CGIS requirements. As stated, the employee changes at the PD. We had a consultant end her last day with us on the 31st. So we, as of last year on the 31st, we no longer had Heartland as an on-site contractor, and we don't have any Heartland contractors. We're using Robert Half Technology as our consultant. She started actually on 12/21 as the main desktop and PC support analyst. The billing rate for that went down from $58.95 down to $50 an hour. We also have the ability to not ever make an offer to hire a Heartland employee. With Robert Half, after 6 months of employment as a contractor, you can turn around and extend an offer for permanent placement to any of their contractors for just a flat finder's fee of $1,000 for it. So it gives you a try before you buy situation for it. So it gives you a try before you buy situation before you decide to turn around and hire. And that's been working quite well. Our 2-year goal is to eliminate all contracted employees for the desktop support position and make these permanent positions. Hopefully getting less employee turnover for these permanent positions. Hopefully getting less employee turnover with it. It's not a guarantee, but it seems to work a little bit better. The data processing consultant fee expenditures will eventually be moved over to the bucket for employee salary and benefits. So we would look at a year-to-year trend instead of seeing $200,000 in data processing. You'll now turn around and see those fees go way down, and it'll then turn around and be put into employee salaries instead. And historically, the consultants, both at the police department, was $260,000. It is anticipated, even with benefits, full benefits, that we'll be cutting that number at least in half. Out of the operating budget, data processing, which is normally what we would spend for consultants. Last year it was $115,000. This year we turned around and brought it down to $30,000. So $30,000 is what I have for ad hoc projects. At this point, anything that I need to turn around and spend or get additional consultant work because I'm working over my knowledge level, I use that funds to turn around and pay for it. Right now we have funds to turn around and pay for it. Right now we have $150,000 in data processing. $150,000 was last year. We have $90,000 this year, a difference of $25,000 in data processing over at the police department. The goal would then be to turn around and take any of the money that was not spent in the data processing when we're ready to hire, and then move that then directly into employee salaries. So then that fund will then go dramatically down salary from the 2023 budget, and then data processing will always have just a little bit for ad hoc IT projects for here at City Hall. An area where we are still using consultants because it's very specialized is over in our GIS support area. Last year we were at $109,000, which was a boost of about $3,000 to adjust for cost of living increases. Equipment maintenance. This falls everywhere from maintenance on the phone system, maintenance on our Palo Alto firewalls, and then maintenance and cloud sync Palo Alto firewalls, and then maintenance and cloud sync services for DR for our appliance. It's $29,457. Last year we were at $35,115. It should be noted that in the Razor Safe, it did go up as we went to 15. It should be noted that in the Razor Safe, it did go up as we went to a much larger appliance. So the maintenance went from 2,000 to 3,580, and then our Cloud Sync DR went from basically 1,500 over to 4,500. Where we anticipated a decrease, where this may come to bite us, is we had decreased our anticipation of the Avaya phone budget to $16,800, and we moved it down to $1,773. There is a project that's out, administration project, is to turn around and replace our Avaya phone system with a newer phone system that's going to be a lot cheaper on the maintenance and support. That probably is behind schedule. I don't know if it'll get done this year or not. Depending on when that gets done, that may impact unusual. Normally, year to year, we're always in the red on the phone maintenance on this budget. This equipment maintenance typically is one that we have a difficulty with because of the phone support and the variability of those phone support contracts.
Do you think the phone should be under you?
It is. So I'm responsible for the phone system, but because it's considered really a citywide system, kind of like the buildings are citywide, it just goes one level higher to me. The budgeting of it is done by Peggy. So she's seeing it as a citywide contract to the implementation of the project and the day-to-day support and operations of it. That is actually within IT. Right.
Who's contributing? Decision of what?
She's right now reaching out to various vendor contracts on it, but there isn't really a specific subgroup.
No, I was going to say, are you?
I am, but I'm also not a phone engineer. I maintain it and run it, etc. for it, and converse what's needed for it. But when it comes to a decision making, it'll come to the technology needed for it. But when it comes to a decision making, it'll come to the technology commission, definitely.
Oh, it will. Okay.
Oh, yes,
like
absolutely.
if they have a couple of or something.
Yes, when it comes down to a series of choices on it, yeah, then that before it goes even to the Common Council, it'll go over to the technology committee for review.
Have the requirements been determined?
Years ago.
Some of them are still being fleshed out. We went to a new Avaya phone system not that long ago. It was in Mark Luberta's last year, before coming on with Peggy. So the Avaya that we have, and why we're saying bye-bye, isn't because the product is deficient or we don't like it. It's because they're putting the price on this so outrageously expensive for the cost of support and maintenance. The maintenance contract is now going to go over to $35. It's continuing to go up at that point. That it's a legacy system. I hate to say it. I like mainframe, and a lot of people are going to the cloud or other alternative sources. And that portion of Avaya, if they have a customer, they're going to milk them for as much as they can. Some of this coming. So their support contracted rates are doubling. And I anticipate probably within the next 2 to 3 years, tripling from what we're probably paying right now. And do we need this quality, this system that we have right now, which can't center if we really want off of it, that it's more hardware and more features than we actually need. We can definitely scale it back in order to get under a lower maintenance plan. Or even definitely look at something completely and totally different than Avaya at this point. That when Mark went from the requirements from the old system at this point, that when Mark went from the requirements from the old system over to the new, one of the big ones was a seamless, transparent migration of our entire call center database, the old system onto the new system on it, and he wanted to have as seamless of migration as much as possible. Wanted to have as seamless of migration as much as possible on it. And as we've learned, I think we have a deeper understanding of the phones and how things are set up right now. Plus, he wanted to reuse a lot of the old boards, and he wanted to reuse a lot of the old phones as well. Nowadays, if you buy a new phone system, they're charging you $300 for a phone. It's just a phone, but they're charging you $300 for it to go with the phone system. So $300 times $300 employees, that's a lot of money just in phones. So that was one main requirement that he had as well of being able to carry forward. So some of those are going to be reviewed and refreshed.
A good reason to go to 0365. Use the phone service through that.
Avia's had some significant financial losses in the last several quarters.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Will they be around?
Cost.
When we look at software maintenance, we're actually doing pretty good on it. One of the biggest areas that we pay for it is ESRI, which makes all of our ArcGIS software for all of our maps. That's normally a good chunk of change. And the other is our enterprise ERP system and our financial system. This was our first year that since we converted from last year. For last year, we converted from the old system, which was MS Govern, over to BSNA, and all of our maintenance and support was included in year zero, the year of your conversion. So this was our first year that we actually had to purchase support on it, and I'm glad to say that they nailed it. It really didn't go up very much, and they maintained all the rates that we were expecting to. So last year, even with MS Govern, we were at $68,726. Even with MS Govern, we were at $68,726. This year, we're at $68,565 on it. $162 difference, even with a major ERP migration on it. So that was really good expense control. And then sundry contract, good expense control. And then sundry contractors on it, that one's kind of a weird catch bag on it. One of the biggest costs we actually have is the hosted website. So all the stuff we do for Northwoods turns around and goes into there. It was $16,370, so it went up about $500. Office supplies pretty much static at $200. Operating supplies is at $1,500, and then equipment supplies. The biggest one on for me is UPS batteries and tapes is what goes into that one. That's $5,450, no difference. We're able to extract, particularly from some of our vendors, some cost considerations. It went down from $11,755. It was at $16,794. Telephone was the biggest one. We went from an AT&T dual T, some fairly high contracted price on that, along with their Centrix phone lines. We started canceling that and went with the AT&T Flex Reach plan that we have with our long distance. That went from $33,409 all the way down to $14,368. Costs also shifted, not to be too deceptive. We did take some costs. Like if you had the CD cell phone plan and such, that then got charged over to the fire department's budget off of it. So some costs also were moved to other departments. Part of that cost reduction.
The telephone is line costs.
Part of that cost reduction.
The telephone is line costs. Telephone lines.
Lines.
Not telephone. Previous conversation.
Yeah, that has nothing to do.
Yes.
It's not the telephone system.
Yes.
This is the telecommunication carrier charges that we're actually charging. And then charges that we're actually charging. And then conferences in education, I normally would go to the MS Govern conference once a year. Well, since we're not on MS Govern, no use for that. So we actually bought a Pluralsight for education and training for all of the staff. to get them up to speed a little bit as part of the onboarding and on the training, and that went from $1,500 up to $1,700. So that is the operational side of the budget. Any questions on that?
Any of the projects that are still untacted by any of the budget items?
Most of what I've been doing for 2022 has been for police and fire. I was planning on infrastructure, but the way things have been going throughout this year, 2 FBI audits, moving of the TELUS, we have a new AP project, place the APs in the Sally Port and in the garage. That's going to be done this year. We have replacing the NetMotion servers over at the police department, and also going over to a new version of Trax, which is used for their citation, which is a state system. That's 7 on one machine, I think Windows 2008 on another, and we're looking at moving that onto a completely new version of new virtual machines with it. Those I have lined up for the next, coming up in the next quarter. Again, police, fire. The next nav upgrade, which will eventually turn around and get rid of GCS, and that's where we turn around and move all of our property tax payment systems and tax calculations over to a Milwaukee County hosted system for it. So even though we aren't doing infrastructure right now, we still got other. Projects that are on the plan. It seems like every time I move one project off for police and fire, they put another. There may be a video surveillance replacement project coming down the road too, on that as well. And that's currently not in the IT budget. That's in on that as well. And that's currently not in the IT budget. That's in the police department budget at this point. But it is still a joint project that we work on. Okay, now we can go back to the line about the going into closed session. First, we need a motion.
Looking for a motion to move to closed session or discuss the agenda topics.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Who's first?
I
No,
did.
okay.
So I'm going to read the statement, and then we'll get into the discussion. Okay. For a closed session, for the items of the agenda relating to the FBI, CJIS internal audit procedure, pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 5(1)D, to consider strategy for crime prevention and the implementation of a program and policy and tools, therefore, crime for the protection of the city technical and information infrastructure and the city official. For competition and bargaining reasons with regard to the prevention and protection program. This is a little harder to. And the investment of public funds in relation thereto to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter the action is taken, such discuss. Place thereafter the action is taken, such discuss. Okay.
We already did the motion second. All right, so I turn on the recording. Okay, I do not have technical issues review. But I do have number 8, Director's Report on IT Operations. This is a little long. Probably be another discussion. And this is probably things that others in the business world have seen. Have seen now. There is an alarming national trend that is impacting IT departments everywhere, one that is altering IT departments' ability to meet service level agreements and continued uninterrupted operations. Vendor fail is a condition that is great, and an impact on organizations is quite significant due to the heavy reliance on outsourcing functions or specialized knowledge. The media has noted that the national trend and hypothesized that it is yet another outcome of the post-pandemic world. Often vendor customer failure is rooted in high employee turnover, new employees with knowledge and aptitude to fill critical roles in their organization. Vendor incidents and response far exceeded the abilities of the new onboarded talent. There have been several operational incidents of vendor failure at the City of Franklin. These include telecommunication vendors, spotty for legacy coax-based customers, and regionally bad weathers, brownouts, and old equipment failures have perpetuated outages. Recently, Spectrum issues created a 3-hour outage at the PD the Friday before Memorial Day, creating additional problems bringing up VPN connections to the state of Wisconsin DOG resources after the outage was resolved. Cut last night. They were having problems with credit card processing because all week their internet kept on going up and down, up and down, up and down, and I've been hearing a lot of residential customers having problems with Spectrum.
I had a 6-hour. It didn't happen until 3 or 4 hours after the storm. So. Well, usually I don't. That's a lot. Yeah. Oh,
AT&T spent over 2 weeks working on a 911 problem that was discovered during a tour of the police dispatch center. It was discovered that 911 calls initiated from within the City of Franklin governmental buildings were going to the wrong dispatch center. Instead of 911 calls being routed to the Franklin Dispatch Center, these instead were being routed over to the Milwaukee County OEM Sheriff Dispatch Center. The problem was eventually resolved by making configuration changes to the E911 routing via an AT&T provider called Intrado. There was a significant delay in getting the trouble ticket routed from within the AT&T support divisions and forwarding the ticket over to the Microsoft. The week of 6/19, PCs received the 21H1 feature release update along with the June 2022 security updates as part of the normal patching cycle. Over the course of the 3 to 5 days, operational outages were incurred by desktop users of 15 to 20 minutes. A desktop computer with an Intel NIC would have an Ethernet card suddenly go offline. All internal and internet LAN network connectivity would cease. The network card would continue to flap on the network until the PC was fully cold booted. In order to get work done, users have to cold boot hours. PCs with Realtek-based NICs were not impacted by this issue. The full resolution to this problem is still being actively worked on, what I was dealing with prior to coming here tonight. Baycom, due to recent staffing issues, tickets opened within the vendor, have taken a technician can be scheduled to work on the problem. Both surveillance cameras and squad ALPR, that's license plate reading cameras, have remained in an inoperable state until the technician can be scheduled. The vendor has committed service contract where indicated cameras are supposed to be maintained on an annual basis. Because of staffing shortages, the maintenance plans are way behind schedule. ProPhoenix, as discussed last week. TELUS code releases were promised 2 months ago and still have yet to be released, even though all fire departments within Milwaukee County are actively using the system. WDA units are still reporting the wrong GPS code to dispatch centers, and change tickets are still taking weeks, not days, for analysis and remediation. This vendor is currently on the risk matrix. The unfortunate situation is the local IT departments do not have the ability to control or manage vendor fail incidents, with only the potential recourse to search to other vendors. Often this is not technically or contractually feasible. Vendor fail issues do seem to be a long-term issue and is one that will have to be anticipated and carried. Downturn, vendor fail situations may occur even with greater frequency, particularly if there are layoffs or major staffing changes. Comments?
On the future agenda items we talk about, so at least we get more detail on it, what's impacting us short and long term.
kind of alluded to, Jim, that you're hostage in some of those situations too, to some degree. And
I have 2 vendors for phone. Spectrum and AT&T. That's it. What do you do? And when 911, they all use Entrado. And so when Entrado fails, it affects everybody. Fails, affects everybody. But try to go the best that you can, and hopefully they will continue to provide good quality. All right, that concludes the director's report on IT operations.
Then we go to item 9, future agenda item. I'd like to make a recommendation that there's just too much here. Okay.
I agree. I was going to say something similar.
Can we focus on like the top 5? I mean, there's 11 or can we focus on like the top 5? I mean, there's 11 or 12 items here.
Yeah, I think prioritizing those future agenda items, because a lot of them have been repeats for several months, right?
Several months, yeah.
Do you want to make a suggestion which ones you want to focus on?
Well, risk watch has to be.
Which I didn't get done because, unfortunately, I was dealing with the Microsoft stuff. So we were supposed to see that tonight, unfortunately. Risk watch. You wanted to add vendor fail?
Yeah. The elephant.
Discussed tonight, SIEM and potentially MFA as that last one. I don't know.
That's probably going to tie to the exchange migration,
Okay.
and that may be a 2023.
I thought there was
I thought it might be for the cybersecurity insurance, but they are saying we won't
Okay.
renew your policy unless you have it. Finish the strategic technology plan, so we're doing that right now. So
Yeah.
It can be, but once we get it done, then we'll be up there. I'd say probably the fiber is the next. Let's keep up to date on the fiber.
Yeah.
Okay, be the 5.
All right. Item 10, our next meeting date. Currently, there is no July meeting,
I'm going on vacation.
and you deserve it.
yeah.
2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
Put your phone in a metal box.
Oh, nice.
Put your phone in a metal box, and don't let anybody know where you're going.
Towards the end of August, I got my parents coming, so.
Okay, and then our next date then is August 25th. So is there any other business we want to discuss as a commission?
Jim,
So is there any other business we want to discuss as a commission?
Jim, I know you threw a lot at us. Is there anything that we can do to help you? I mean,
What?
there's a lot on the cyber stuff and whatnot. Is there
I'm going to
anything we can
need
chew on?
probably, as I'm finalizing and moving towards the SI, throw some ideas out to the security experts on it, and garner your opinion on some of the discussions on it. I do look like I'm going to have a Rapid 7 meeting on the 15th of July. It was kind of like an overview business meeting.
Okay.
I know Jim wants to be a part of the review team of it. It's never been done where we actually had, but we don't have security experts here of actually having technology commission members as part of that. I would love to have them give a full review of the entire product line, but if we have 3 or 4 vendors, that would take 4 hours.
Right.
Trying to get the marketing people, they will not stick to 15 minutes.
And yeah, so when you were talking about Rapid 7, that's where my mind went. What other things can a managed security service provide that would take some things off your plate, right?
Mhm. And that's where I kind of like look at the
Yep.
of it as well.
Right.
That helps me not having to deal with some. We don't have to worry about that much about patch management, etc. But at least from a security standpoint, I'm not chasing security issues all the time on it.
Yeah, if you want, I'd be more than happy.
These together, I'll put that in place as well. So I'm going to try to create the top 3 because minimally I need 3 on it, and it'll be 3 really good solutions out there. There's a lot of Johnny-come-lately minor ones that are out there at this point, and I'm not really all that interested. I have to set up and configure, and again, no DR to it. So if you have no DR, what's the point? Kind of the way I look at it. I'm looking for the button. Okay, all we need is a motion to adjourn.
So do we have a motion to adjourn? Anybody?
I'll motion to adjourn.